During soundcheck, something shifted. Ace Frehley stopped playing, lifted his head, and everyone in the room felt that silent change. The venue was empty. 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. Detroit. Cobo Hall. The kind of massive concrete arena that swallowed sound during the day and amplified it into thunder at night. In 6 hours, 20,000 people would fill those seats. Right now, it was just the crew, the equipment, and the band running through their setup. Ace stood center stage, Gibson Les Paul hanging from his shoulder, facing his Marshall stack. He'd been checking levels for maybe 10 minutes. Standard procedure. Run through the basic tones. Make sure the signal chain was clean. Pedals responding. Amplifiers warm. Nothing unusual. He played a simple run. E minor pentatonic. The kind of thing muscle memory handles while the mind wanders. His fingers moved across the fretboard with practiced ease, the sound filling the empty arena with that thick, warm distortion that had become his signature. And then something changed. Not in the notes. Not in his playing. In the air itself. Ace's hand stopped moving. His fingers went still on the strings. The last note hung in the arena for a moment before dying into silence. He didn't look at the audience area. Didn't look at his bandmates setting up their equipment across the stage. He looked at his amplifier. Just looked at it. His head tilted slightly, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. The sound engineer in the mixing booth, a guy named Marcus who'd been doing arena shows for 15 years, noticed immediately. He leaned forward, hand hovering over the board, watching Ace's silhouette on the stage. One of the roadies setting up drum hardware stopped mid-motion, wrench in hand, and looked at Ace. The guitar tech adjusting Paul Stanley's setup on the other side of the stage glanced over. Everyone felt it. That shift. That change in the room's energy when someone who knows what they're doing detects something wrong. Ace stood perfectly still. His Les Paul hung silent against his chest. His eyes never left the amplifier stack. Ace didn't defend himself. He never did. Nobody understood Ace Frehley. Not really. They knew the persona. Space Ace, the cosmic guitarist with the smoking guitar and the silver makeup. The showman. The character. But the man underneath that makeup rarely spoke. Rarely explained. Rarely justified. In interviews, he gave short answers. On stage, he let his playing talk. In the studio, he'd record his parts and disappear. The other guys in Kiss, Paul, Gene, Peter, they had opinions about everything, theories about the band's direction, plans for the future. Ace just showed up and played. People mistook his silence for simplicity. They assumed the guy in the space suit couldn't possibly be thinking deeply about tone, about frequency response, about the subtle interplay between pickup output and amplifier headroom. They were wrong. Ace had been playing guitar since he was 13. Bedroom sessions that turned into basement bands that turned into bar gigs that turned into arenas. 20 years of his life spent learning how electricity becomes sound, how wood and wire and magnetic fields create music. He didn't talk about it because talking wasn't the point. The point was knowing. And knowing meant listening. Right now, standing on that empty Detroit stage, Ace was listening. Marcus's voice crackled over the PA system from the mixing booth. Ace? Everything okay up there? Ace didn't respond. He reached down slowly and turned a knob on his wah pedal. Rocked it forward then back. No change in his expression. He flipped the switch on his distortion pedal. Off then on again. Then he unplugged the cable from his guitar. Just unplugged it. The soft click echoed in the silent arena. The roadie with the wrench stood up fully now. Ace? You need something? Ace finally spoke. His voice was quiet, matter-of-fact. Something's not right. With the guitar? No. The pedals? No. The amp? Ace was already walking across the stage toward his equipment rack. He moved with that unhurried precision of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for but hadn't found it yet. His boots made soft sounds on the stage floor. His Les Paul swung gently against his side. He reached his gear station, the organized chaos of backup guitars, effect pedals, spare cables, tools. Without looking at anyone, without asking permission or explaining his actions, he grabbed a different cable. Brand new, still coiled. He unwound it with quick, efficient movements. Subscribe and leave a comment, because some moments only make sense when we remember them together. The guitar tech, a younger guy named Danny who'd been working with the band for 6 months, stepped closer. Ace, I checked all the cables this morning. They're good. Ace plugged the new cable into his guitar. I know. So what? Just wait. Ace walked back to center stage. Plugged the cable into his effects chain. The whole rig was dead silent now, everyone watching, everyone waiting for whatever Ace had sensed. He flipped his pedals on. Adjusted his volume knob. Positioned his hands on the fretboard. And played the exact same E minor pentatonic run he'd been playing when he stopped. The sound came out clean. Full. Rich. Exactly what it should be. Marcus leaned into his microphone. That sounds perfect, Ace. What was the problem? Ace didn't answer. He was listening again. That intense concentration on his face, like he was hearing frequencies beyond the range of normal perception. He played another run. Stopped. Played again. Stopped. Then he nodded to himself. Once. Quick. Decisive. He unplugged again. Danny, the guitar tech, couldn't help himself. Ace, man, I really don't hear any difference. It sounds exactly the same. It does now, Ace said quietly. What changed? The cable. But you said the cable wasn't the problem. It wasn't. Ace held up the original cable he'd been using. This one's fine. It works. But it was adding phase interference at a frequency most people can't hear. Especially not in a sound check. But when 20,000 people are here, when the room is full of bodies and the air is vibrating differently, that interference would have built up. By the third song, there would have been a buzz under everything I played. Not loud. But there. Danny stared at him. You can hear that? In an empty arena? You can predict what a cable is going to do when the room is full? Ace shrugged. I've been doing this a long time. Away from the spotlight, Ace made a choice no one expected. The soundcheck continued. The rest of the band arrived. Paul ran through vocal warm-ups. Gene tested his bass rig. Peter hammered through a drum pattern. Everything was routine, professional, the well-oiled machine of a touring rock band preparing for another show. But Marcus, the sound engineer, couldn't stop thinking about what he'd witnessed. During a break, he walked down from the booth and approached Ace, who was sitting on the edge of the stage, quietly tuning his guitar by ear. Hey, Marcus said. Can I ask you something? Ace looked up. Didn't say anything. Just waited. How did you know about the cable? I mean, really. That's... Marcus shook his head. That's impossible. There's no way anyone can hear phase interference at that level in an empty room. I didn't hear it. Ace said. Then how? I felt it. Ace set his guitar down gently beside him. When you've been playing long enough, you don't just listen with your ears. The whole thing becomes connected. The guitar, the amp, the room, your body. It's all one circuit. And when something's off in the circuit, even by a fraction, you feel it. Like when you walk into a room and know someone's been arguing even if they're not talking. The energy's different. Marcus sat down on the stage next to him. I've been doing sound for 15 years. I've worked with hundreds of guitarists. I've never heard anyone talk about it like that. Most people don't think about it. Ace said. They just play louder to cover up what's wrong. But loud doesn't fix problems. It just makes them bigger. There was a pause. The arena hummed with the ambient sound of equipment and crew preparing for the show. Someone laughed in the distance. A cymbal rang out as Peter tested his kit. You know what people say about you? Marcus asked carefully. Ace smiled slightly. Not offended. Just curious. I'm sure they say a lot of things. They say you're just the showman. The guy with the makeup and the smoking guitar. That Paul and Jean are the real musicians. Yeah, Ace said. I've heard that. Does it bother you? No. Why not? Ace picked up his guitar again. Ran his thumb across the strings without plugging in, just feeling the vibration through the wood. Because when the show starts, when the lights come on and 20,000 people are watching, none of that matters. What matters is whether I can deliver. Whether I can make this thing. He held up the guitar. Say what it needs to say. People can think whatever they want about me. But the guitar doesn't lie. Marcus nodded slowly. That cable thing you did. Most guitarists would have just dealt with it. Pushed through. Blamed the sound guy later if something went wrong. I'm not most guitarists. No, Marcus agreed. You're really not. The show that night was flawless. Ace's tone cut through the arena like a blade, clear, powerful, perfectly balanced. No buzz. No interference. No problems that 20,000 people couldn't hear but that one man had sensed 6 hours earlier. During the solo in Shock Me, Ace's signature song, he hit a sustained high note that rang through Cobo Hall with crystal clarity. Marcus, standing at the mixing booth, actually got chills. That note wouldn't have existed, not like that, not with that purity, if Ace hadn't caught the cable problem during soundcheck. After the show, as the band was leaving the stage, Danny the guitar tech pulled Ace aside. I need to apologize, Danny said. Ace was wiping makeup off with a towel. For what? For thinking you were wrong earlier. About the cable. I should have trusted you. You were doing your job, Ace said. You checked the equipment. It tested fine. You weren't wrong. But you were more right. Ace smiled. Experience. That's all it is. You'll get there. Will you teach me? Danny asked. How to hear, or feel, what you felt today. Ace considered this. You really want to learn? Yeah. Okay. Tomorrow's soundcheck. Bring a notebook. I'll show you some things. What followed silenced everyone in the room. The next day's soundcheck became something different. Word had spread among the crew about what Ace had detected in Detroit. When they set up in Cleveland the following night, Marcus mentioned it to the house sound engineer. Danny told the other guitar techs. Paul and Jean heard about it and made jokes, good-natured ribbing about Ace's magical hearing, but there was respect underneath the humor. During the Cleveland soundcheck, Ace didn't just check his own gear. He walked Danny through the entire signal chain, explaining not just what each piece of equipment did but how it felt when it was working correctly versus when something was subtly off. Plug this in, Ace said, handing Danny a cable. Danny plugged it into the guitar and amp. Now play something. Danny hesitated. I don't really play guitar. Doesn't matter. Just hit a string. Danny plucked the low E string awkwardly. The sound boomed through the arena. Okay, Ace said. Now switch to this cable. He handed Danny a different one. Danny swapped cables and plucked the same string. Hear the difference? Ace asked. Not really. That's because you're listening for the wrong thing. You're listening for the note. Listen past the note. Listen to the space around it. Danny closed his eyes. Played again. And suddenly he heard it, a tiny difference in the decay, in how the sound faded into the empty arena. I hear it, Danny whispered. Ace nodded. Now you're learning. Over the next 3 weeks, that soundcheck lesson became a ritual. Ace would arrive early. Danny would bring his notebook. Other crew members started watching, learning. Marcus began applying the same principles to his mixing approach. The house engineers in each city would stop by to listen to what Ace was teaching. He never announced it. Never made it formal. Never acted like a teacher. He just showed up and shared what he knew with anyone willing to listen. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. 30 years later, Danny owns one of the most respected guitar tech companies in the music industry. He still has that notebook from 1978. On the first page, in his own handwriting. Listen past the note. Ace. The cable Ace replaced that day in Detroit? Marcus kept it. Tested it later in controlled conditions. Ace was right. There was phase interference at 14.7 kHz, barely detectable under normal circumstances, but enough to cause problems in a crowded arena. Ace never mentioned it again. Never bragged. Never used it to prove anything to anyone. He didn't need to. The guitar had already spoken.